You always think that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and that light's going to be home. We thought it was very, very difficult to escape from Germany, and probably less than 1% of people who got out of camps got home.
He said, I was called to the commandant's office this morning, but he gave me the awful news that of the 76 officers who went out of the tunnel, 50 have been killed.
Beneath the towering pines of Nazi Germany, Stalag Luft III stood as an escape-proof fortress. Guard towers loomed, barbed wire stretched endlessly, and even the soil itself seemed to conspire against freedom. Yet, against all odds, a group of pilots hatched a plan so daring it would go down in history. They didn't just want to escape, they wanted to outsmart their captors in the most spectacular way possible. But how did they pull off the impossible? And what happened when their secret was finally uncovered? The true story of Stalag Luft III. In the dense forests of what was then Nazi Germany, about 100 miles southeast of Berlin, sat one of World War II's most infamous prisoner of war camps, Stalag Luft III. Built between 1942 and 1944, this sprawling complex was designed with one purpose in mind: to be escape-proof. The Germans were tired of Allied airmen breaking out of other camps, so they put everything they had into making Stalag Luft III the ultimate secure facility. At its peak, the camp housed between 10,000 and 12,000 prisoners, mostly officers from Allied air forces who had been shot down over enemy territory. These weren't ordinary prisoners. They were pilots, navigators, and bombardiers, men accustomed to thinking creatively, taking risks, and facing death. Many felt it was their duty to escape and get back to the fight. What made this camp special wasn't its size or the people in it, but what happened beneath it. Under the watchful eyes of German guards, hundreds of prisoners worked together over a year to dig 3 massive tunnels that would lead to the largest and most daring prison break of World War II, the escape-proof camp. The Germans thought they had covered every possible escape angle. Stalag Luft III was built on sandy soil, specifically chosen because it would be difficult to tunnel through without causing a collapse. The yellowish sand below ground was also visibly different from the grayish surface sand, making it easier to spot if prisoners were digging. Around the entire perimeter ran 2 tall fences spaced about 5 feet apart, topped with vicious coils of barbed wire. Between them was a deadly tangle of more barbed wire. Guard towers equipped with powerful searchlights and machine guns overlooked the compound, while armed sentries patrolled the grounds day and night. The Germans even placed sensitive microphones underground around the camp's perimeter to detect tunneling sounds. The prisoner barracks were intentionally built on stilts a few inches off the ground, so guards could easily see underneath. No hiding a tunnel entrance there. Inside this supposedly escape-proof prison, the conditions were actually decent by POW standards. The camp had a library, sports fields, and even a theater where prisoners put on shows. This was partly because the camp was run by the Luftwaffe, German Air Force, rather than the SS or Gestapo, and there was a certain professional respect between airmen on both sides. But these comforts didn't stop the prisoners from wanting to get out. For them, escaping wasn't just about freedom, it was about getting back to the war effort and tying up German resources in the search for escapees. The Escape Committee. Behind the organized escape attempt was a group called the X Organization, led by squadron leader Roger Bushell of the Royal Air Force, who prisoners called Big X. After several transfers from other camps and previous escape attempts, Bushell arrived at Stalag Luft III with one goal: to pull off the biggest prison break in military history. In early 1943, Bushell called a meeting of escape leaders and announced his ambitious plan. Everyone here in this room is living on borrowed time. By rights, we should all be dead. The only reason that God allowed us this extra ration of life is so we can make life hell for the Hun. His plan was audacious. They would dig not 1, but 3 tunnels simultaneously. If the Germans found one, they might not think to look for others. The tunnels were given simple names: Tom, Dick, and Harry. By spreading their efforts across 3 tunnels, they hoped to improve their chances of success. The plan was for over 200 men to escape through whichever tunnel was completed first, building an underground railroad. What followed was one of the most impressive engineering feats accomplished by prisoners in history. The escape committee assigned specific jobs to over 600 men who had skills that could contribute. The operation had departments for security, tunnel engineering, forgery, clothing, and intelligence gathering. The tunnels would need to be deep, about 30 feet underground to avoid detection by microphones. They would also need to stretch more than 300 feet to reach beyond the camp's perimeter and into the nearby woods. To make this work, they needed massive amounts of materials: wood for supporting the tunnel walls, light bulbs for illumination, and tools for digging. Nearly all of these had to be stolen or improvised from items in the camp. Bedboards disappeared at night and became tunnel supports. Metal from food tins was fashioned into tools and candle holders. The prisoners even built a working bellows system from kit bags to pump fresh air into the tunnels. One of the biggest challenges was hiding all the sand they dug up. A single tunnel would produce tons of bright yellow sand that couldn't be left in plain sight. The solution came in the form of penguins, prisoners who carried small bags of sand in specially modified long underwear. Walking around the compound, they would release small amounts at a time, kicking it to blend with the surface soil. These men got their nickname from their waddling gait as they moved with bags of sand inside their pants. The tunnels themselves were engineering marvels. Just 2 feet square, they featured wooden rails for a trolley system, electric lighting powered by batteries from the camp's theater, and a ventilation system made from milk tins. The entrance to Harry was hidden under a stove in one of the barracks, which could be moved thanks to an ingenious hinge system. Preparing for freedom. While some men dug, others prepared what the escapees would need on the outside. The forgery department, headed by Flight Lieutenant Tim Whalen, created over 400 fake documents, including German identity cards, work permits, and travel passes. Without computers or proper materials, they used scratched glass as tracing paper and melted boot heels mixed with water for ink. The tailoring department transformed military uniforms into civilian clothes. German-speaking prisoners practiced their cover stories and memorized local knowledge that might be needed. Maps were drawn from memory or copied from smuggled sources. The intelligence department compiled information about train schedules, police checkpoints, and the safest routes to neutral countries like Sweden and Switzerland. They even created small compasses hidden inside buttons and packed concentrated food for the journey. By September 1943, disaster struck when the Germans discovered Tunnel Tom during a routine inspection. Security tightened, but the prisoners pressed on with the other 2 tunnels, focusing mainly on Harry. The night of the escape. By March 1944, Tunnel Harry was ready. Stretching 336 feet from Hut 104 to just beyond the camp's perimeter fence, it was a remarkable achievement. The escape was scheduled for the night of March 24th to 25th, a moonless night perfect for the breakout. The first men entered the tunnel around 8:30 p.m., but immediately encountered problems. The exit trap door had frozen shut from recent rains, and it took precious time to force it open. When they finally did, they discovered another problem. The tunnel exit fell short of the protective forest, ending instead in open ground just a few yards from a guard tower. Despite these setbacks, the escape began. One by one, men crawled through the narrow passage, taking about 10 minutes each to navigate the length of the tunnel. At the exit, a rope pulling system alerted those waiting to emerge when it was safe to come out between guard patrols. The plan called for 200 men to escape, but the delays caused by the frozen trapdoor and the need for extreme caution at the exposed exit point slowed things down dramatically. By 5 a.m., only 76 men had made it through. Then disaster struck. A German guard on patrol spotted a prisoner emerging from the tunnel. Shots were fired, alarms sounded, and the escape route was compromised. The remaining prisoners had no choice but to destroy evidence of the tunnel and return to their barracks. The manhunt and tragedy. News of the escape sent shockwaves through Nazi Germany. Hitler himself was furious and ordered all escapees to be shot when recaptured. Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS, modified this to executing 3/4 of them, a compromise that would still send a message while not being a total violation of the Geneva Conventions regarding POWs. The largest manhunt of the war was launched, involving an estimated 73,000 German personnel. Roadblocks, identity checks, and train searches made movement nearly impossible. Within days, most escapees were recaptured. Only 3 men made it to freedom: 2 Norwegian pilots, Per Bergsland and Jens Müller, who reached Sweden by boat, and a Dutch pilot, Bram van der Stok, who made his way through France with help from the resistance and eventually to Spain and Gibraltar. The rest faced a tragic fate. While 23 were returned to POW camps, 50 were taken to remote locations in small groups and shot in cold blood. The Germans initially claimed they were shot while trying to escape. But evidence later revealed these were calculated executions, ordered from the highest levels of Nazi leadership. When news of these killings reached the camp, the prisoners were devastated, but also more determined than ever. They began documenting everything they knew about the murders to ensure justice would eventually be served. After the war ended in 1945, the murders of the 50 officers became part of the Nuremberg war crimes trials. Several Gestapo officers involved in the killings were convicted and hanged or imprisoned for their roles in this atrocity.